What's up guys, my name is Carl and welcome to Tech Hunter. This right here is the Logitech Litra Glow. It looks like somebody else has finally decided to try and compete with Elgato in the gaming/streaming accessories market. At £59 in the UK, it offers something much more affordable than what Elgato charges for their Keylight Air and offers decent brightness for the size and also the ability to control it via software on your PC. So the big elephant in the room. What about the Keylight Mini that just released? That's cheaper than the Keylight Air. It has a built-in battery which can be charged via USB-C for longer battery life or just plugged in. Is brighter than this Litra Glow. It has magnets built in for mounting, can be controlled via a Steam Deck and even your phone. Well, I have this to say to you. This is cheaper. I bought these before Elgato announced the Mini, so basically this video is going to be me trying to justify why I've bought two of these and how I might not want to completely regret my purchase. Before we open these though, I'll run you through the specs. It offers 250 lumens of brightness, which really isn't a lot, so you will want this pretty close to your face or subject. The color temperature ranges from 2700 Kelvin to 6500 Kelvin, so you can get a nice warm yellow, almost orange glow from these, all the way up to that kind of bluish daylight white. In order to achieve that maximum brightness though, you will have to sit somewhere in the middle of those two temperatures, around 4000 to 5000 Kelvin. As with most color correlated temperature lights or CCT lights, they're made up from both warm white LEDs and daylight LEDs. The lower or higher the temperature you go, one color will get dimmer in order to increase or decrease the color temperature of the lamp. So let's see what £59 actually gets you. So I'm going to push this one out the way for now, and then we will open up this one. So packaging is fairly neat. So this is pretty much how the Litra works. It will mount onto your top of your monitor, and then it will shine that light directly at you from about, whatever sort of distance away, kind of like arm's length, depending on how far away your monitor is from you. It hooks on here, but it also does have a thread on it, I believe, so you could tripod mount it or kind of wall mount it with any kind of 1/4" thread. Right, so let's see what else we get in the box. Two manuals, a USB-C to USB-A cable. Seems to be about 1.5 meters in length, fairly straightforward. You get the lamp, you get the light itself, and a cable to plug it in. So in order to control it, you would likely need to use the G-Hub software, which is fine for me as I already have it installed because I have a G915 and a G305 Logitech keyboard and mouse. So it's just a case of heading to logitech.com/creators/download to then get the software to run these things on your computer. You also have manual controls on the back of it. So you can obviously adjust here on the right hand side. We have cooler and warmer temperature, power button, and then up and down brightness, I can assume. So let's get this thing quickly plugged in. So as you can see, it seems to be really nicely diffused. There's no kind of real bright LEDs that you can see on this thing. It's quite easy to see, though it does look a little bit like there's a slightly darker spot in that kind of corner to my eyes, but maybe it's just the angle I'm holding it at. And like I said earlier, on the back, we can obviously want to make things warmer, hold that top button, and the LED will get gradually warmer into like this nice orange kind of glow, and then hold the cool, and it will get that kind of whiter and bluer. Lovely. And obviously, let's try go for max brightness. Cool. I mean, that's actually quite bright. 250 lumens doesn't sound a lot, but when it's this close to you, it kind of is. Whereas like a Keylight Air, you might have sat a little bit further back from your desk. This is going to be sat more or less on top of your monitor, and it's going to be pretty close to you, but it's hard to tell whether that could be a little bit annoying or not, that if it's too close to you. Let's see if we can make it a little bit warmer. So the arm itself just completely unscrews, and then you are left with the light on its own. Nice and easy, and then you do have that thread at the bottom if you wanted to, say, mount it on maybe a tripod or a wall mount bracket. Right, so what I'm going to do now is unbox the second one of these, head over to the PC, open up the G-Hub software, and start having a fiddle around with these. One thing I am curious to see is how much this may overhang the monitor, and see if it actually interrupts the display at all. It has a little rubber pad at the top and the bottom, so it shouldn't really cause any scratching or anything like that, but I'm not too convinced on the angle, as it pretty much only does that, and then you get a little bit of adjustment on there. So we'll see how these set up and how well they work with an ultra-wide curved monitor, which I think is going to be a little bit more difficult because it's not really going to be a nice flat straight edge. So right, I'll open this and I'll head over. So now I've moved over to the desktop and I've got both of these set up and in position. Well, one of them is in position, the other one is in my hands. One thing I did notice is that this can actually extend, so it can be a lot longer than what it is. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, you can twist and pivot this thing up and down, left and right. And you can also route the cable down the back here. It clips in there and it looks kind of neat in a way. But once it's set up in place in the monitor, and once I've got them both set up, I'll obviously show you guys some B-roll of that anyway, so you can have a look for yourself and see how it kind of interferes with the setup and how maybe out of place they might look, or even perhaps how quite well they actually kind of blend in, especially with a white wall anyway. Anyway, let's get back to it and I'll start plugging these in. I'll run you through the software and we can see just how good these things actually are. Right, so first thing we're going to want to do is head over and download the Logitech G Hub software. Click download for Windows 10, it will start installing, and then follow the steps to install it. And then once you have installed it, we'll head over to the Litra Glow. First things first is power on your Litra Glow, choose your camera, adjust your color temperature and brightness, manual adjustment, or choose presets. And you can apply these presets using G keys on, like, say, a Logitech keyboard. And that's kind of, I guess, Logitech's closest way they can get to kind of like an Elgato Stream Deck. Right, so we'll do it this way around. We'll have my face there and we'll have the software open in the corner. We'll turn on the lights. Both of them have come on together, which I'm not sure if you can turn them on individually. Manual adjustment. Cozy daylight. Ooh. Right, so currently we are just lit by the 2 Litra Glows, and they are currently set to around middle brightness, and the temperature, we'll stick that in the middle as well. We'll have a little bit of warmth in there. I don't know, we'll go a little bit more cooler, and then we can adjust the brightness all the way up to the maximum. It's a little bit bright on my eyes, so, but what I will say is that we are pretty well lit. We've got good coverage all around my face. It's also throwing a bit of light to the background, but not too much, so it's not really filling the room with brightness, which is quite good. So you can kind of get that kind of darker background effect if you wanted to, and then also kind of keep your face and subject that is close by quite well lit. What we could do is we could direct these a little bit more down and maybe towards me, and then same with this one. I'll be honest, that's a pretty good picture. We're getting full coverage of my face. No kind of dark zones, and they don't look too bad. Obviously you can fiddle around with this all day long until you get it perfectly exactly how you want it. Like I mentioned earlier, we can have the bright, cool, very much daylight. You've got it's nice to have the presets here, which is just kind of built in instead of sliding this all around. It's nice to have a few presets. What would be nice if it told you what the Kelvin rating is for these, and maybe the brightness as well, because these presets are adjusting the brightness, they are adjusting the temperature at the same time. So it'd be good to know exactly what they are. And also the same with the temperature. I'd like to have numbers here. I'd like to know exactly what Kelvin it is so that you can match your camera's white balance to it. So say you've set it to 5500 Kelvin. Usually you match your camera with that as well, or if you wanted it maybe a little bit warmer, maybe 5000 or 4500, it'd be good to actually have numbers to see what you're working with, which is maybe something they can add in the future with a software update. But for now, it's a little bit disappointing. I suppose for £59 for just the one light, it isn't too bad. Let's try it with just the one. Okay. All right. We can't have just one on at a time. We have to physically remove that light. So as far as just having one light, you do obviously get a lot of kind of shadow and like a big dark spot on one side. But if you was to say move it towards the middle, a little bit closer to the camera, it's a little bit better. Again, with it only being 250 lumen, you really aren't getting a lot of brightness here, and it does kind of look a little bit dim. You might have to adjust the settings in your camera. Currently my ISO is set quite low with my camera, and my shutter speed is around 100, and I think it's set about 2.5 aperture at the moment. You could quite easily get away with, say, just using one light and then adjust these settings in your camera to compensate. But for me personally, I think it's a lot better to kind of have two of these set up at the same time because they are quite small. Yeah, I think personally with two of these set up either side of the monitor, it gives a lot more even spread across my face. You don't get any kind of really dark positions, and even with it directly in front of you, you are still likely to get some kind of dark spots, maybe whether it's maybe just on one side because you're likely going to have your camera in the middle and then maybe the light just one side, or if you're going to have, say, your camera to the side, you're going to have a light maybe one way or the other, depending on how your setup is currently set up. Say set up one more time. Overall, I'm quite impressed with these Litras. They're not perfect. They have a lot of compromises compared to, say, an Elgato product. You can't use them with the Stream Deck, which is obviously quite a big thing. If you wanted to, say, control your lights with your Stream Deck, like the lights behind me I can quite easily do that just by hitting a button down here, as opposed to going into software and adjusting things. Though if you did get maybe a bigger Logitech keyboard and not a TKL one, then you might have a chance at using some of the G keys to adjust things. But again, you're then looking at changing your keyboard just to adjust your lighting. It's a little bit less user-friendly. Also, there's no control with your phone either. You can't just pick up your phone and adjust the brightness. You have to be on the PC to adjust the brightness and the settings. But if these are for streaming and these are for, say, doing this kind of talking head thing, which I'm doing right now, then honestly, they work pretty well for that. They give a good even amount of light. They're not too bright, they're not too distracting, and if you're focused on looking at your screen, I'll be honest, they're pretty good. So I suppose the conclusion is, would I recommend these over, say, something similar like the Elgato Key Light Mini? If you already have a Stream Deck, then probably not, because the Elgato works perfectly with that. If you don't have a Stream Deck and you don't have any intention of getting one, then these are pretty good for that. It's really easy to adjust the temperature and the brightness. It's a pretty useful app. It's pretty effective. As far as a few downsides are concerned, these things are not portable at all. They will only work once connected to a PC. You can't connect them to anything else to get power to them, which is a little bit of a downside because like a key light, for example, has its own separate power and then connects via Wi-Fi to, say, this same network as your Stream Deck or your phone, which gives you a little bit more freedom and a little bit more control outside of sitting directly here. But if you plan on using them for streaming, maybe you're an up-and-coming streamer and you don't have the money right now, they are pretty effective, they're pretty affordable, and they're really, really easy to set up and mount. They don't take up a huge amount of space on the desk like the Keylight Air might do. You don't need to find anything particularly fancy or strong to mount it to. They just hook on the monitor. You barely even notice they're there. They don't infringe on the actual visible display at all. And they look quite neat in a way. And if you wanted to, you could always just kind of fold them down or just unplug them and put them in a drawer or something if you don't want to see them there all the time. Anyway, guys, that brings us to the end of the video. If you had found any of this useful and you've got any more questions about the Logitech Litra Glows, feel free to leave them just below that like button down below. And whilst you're down there, feel free to click that subscribe button if my face hasn't offended you. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Cheers.